So, good morning. My name is Sarah Chessell, and I'm the lead for the Dorset Innovation Hub. As part of our programme for promoting innovation, it's my absolute pleasure to be joined today by Dr. Claire Nadaf, Head of the Academic Enterprise and Engagement and lead for the Centre for Workforce and Systems Innovation at the AECC University College in Dorset. This morning, we're going to explore the International Women's Day theme to inspire inclusion. Claire, thanks for joining me today.
No, thanks for asking me, Sarah.
You're more than welcome. To kick us off, Claire, can you outline what you feel inspiring inclusion means to you?
Yep. So I think inclusivity is such an important thing of everything that we do every day. And at the moment I work in higher education, and that's really about empowering people. So empowering people, making them part of the decision making process, empowering them to make their own decisions, which I think at the moment people sometimes shy away from. But when people feel valued and they feel included, that brings alongside it some empowerment and some confidence to really feel that you're really a part of something.
Absolutely. Thank you, Claire. And I think empowerment is a theme, obviously, of an International Women's Day, but also a theme as we look at how we work in our everyday life professionally, but also in our home life, in our personal lives as well. So just thinking about building on inclusion, how do you feel we can break down barriers and create environments where all women are valued and respected?
Yeah, so I think I'm the mother of two girls as well. So, whilst I wouldn't call myself a feminist, I feel very much that as women, we do need to be able to feel comfortable in any environment. So I think there's something around promotion of diversity. So if we think we need to try and embrace the chat, not see things as challenges. So try and embrace diversity, not to see it as something where we need to think differently. Because if we're working inclusively, we will look at
Mm.
people's differences. How do we work alongside those differences? How do we embrace them? But more importantly, Sarah, how do we celebrate them? Because actually, the world would be the most boring place if we weren't all a little bit different. So I think it's about really creating better environments, inclusive decision making, which in turn, as you know, and we talk about innovation a lot, will create more innovation because people feeling included is really very much central to that.
Absolutely. And thank you. Building on innovation, it is about us all thinking innovatively, both in our personal and professional lives. And just want to explore just a little bit about, I love the way you turned it on its head and you were talking about, let's not think about challenges, let's think about celebrating. So opportunities. Do you have an example perhaps where you could give us that either for your students or for the staff you work with, that you've been able to support the creation of those environments?
So I guess I don't know about one particular example, but for me, the way I work through that is really through relational leadership. So one of the things that I try to do with my team is really flip everything on its head. So just thinking about we're all working together towards a shared purpose. We're all going to work in very different ways to get there. And that's brilliant because actually there is no one right way, is there? So I have a team
Mm.
of staff here, some of whom are very experienced academics and will work in one particular way, some of whom are coming in fresh with really bright ideas and fresh
Mm.
eyes on systems and processes and actually how we could try and change those and challenge things to make improvement. So that relational leadership underpinning and being able to recognize where people can contribute, and it might on occasions seem like, okay, well, maybe we're going a little bit off track here, um, but
Mm.
really being able to feel confident to go with that sort of direction of travel and trusting people is just a way of you can, you know, how you make them feel included, and again, like we said, empowered. So valuing people's beliefs, valuing people's experiences, valuing people's history. And I'm a really firm believer of Gadamer, so a German philosopher who I've done a lot of reading about, who really says that everything that we do comes from our history. So all of our experiences in our history are the thing that we base most of our decisions on.
Yeah.
And so if we can't embrace the history that people bring with them, we're going to really struggle to move forward.
So relational leadership, being comfortable with letting folk explore their new ideas, embracing that, empowering them. May
Yeah.
not always work, but actually that's part of that learning process. So thinking then about relational leadership and looking at perhaps the context. So you're talking about, was it Gadamer?
Yes. Yeah.
Gadamer, thinking about, you know, your academic work, thinking about my academic work with critical realist theories, it is actually about looking at what drives people. It's about understanding their motivations. It's about understanding how they are and where they are in their development, personally or professionally. And actually, that's really important for women, but also across the whole workforce, that we are enabling that new generation of leaders to come forward in that relational style and recognize the diversities and recognize the importance of learning and that further developing.
Yeah, no, you're right. And I think another really important bit of Gadamer's work is actually language is understanding. And without language, we can't have understanding. So I really feel like a big part of inclusivity sits within that language, sits within talking, sits within understanding people, understanding where they come from, understanding where they're going. um, and again, then that will help us to recognize
Mhm.
diversity and work with diversity to support everyone to progress. So whether that's a student in their role, in their, you know, going through their course, whether
Mm.
it's a member of staff in their role, thinking about how do we support that? So how do we support their thoughts, their values? All of our values are so incredibly different, aren't they?
Yeah.
And really embracing that as much as we possibly can and supporting it. And sometimes that's about how do we provide resources that support people. That's not about money. Resources can be such a wide variety of different things. And I think there's one other thing that I've been thinking about quite a lot this week around inclusivity, and that's around using people's stories. And that's something that we probably don't think about enough. If we took people's stories, we shared people's stories, and we use them as examples for other people,
Mm.
that enables us to demonstrate how we can be inclusive.
Absolutely. Just exploring that thread just a little bit further, I just think it's really interesting our work together leading on the Dorset Innovation Hub education programme, which is obviously affiliated with your AECC University College programme, and our further work on the practitioner unit that we're doing. A central thread as we are teaching is actually about that, what I call the universal language, that understanding that context. Thinking about our community of practice that we're doing in the middle of March, where we're looking at, you know, behaviours and people thinking about change. And actually it's about understanding where the individual is coming from. And I think all these elements, all these spokes that we learn from, helps us actually understand better where folk are coming from. Why are they reacting in a certain way to change within the Dorset system? How can we turn that on its head and actually enable a better understanding and their inclusion in? And just therefore linking that back to what you're saying about the stories, I think stories are really powerful, and they're powerful if actually we actually take a story and understand the context and the background, and we use that as a positive construct to actually try and make changes, to work with individuals with changes, to look at how there is further learning from that so that we can improve staff, student, service user experience and their outcomes. And it's actually something that I would like to, with our education programme, actually build on further. I'm working on a story at the moment with one of our patient and public representatives that work with us as part of the Dorset Innovation Hub. So I wonder if you and I could catch up just to explore that a little bit more, you know, in the next couple of weeks, because we could use it as a really powerful resource to actually gain understanding. And it's about the patient and public representatives' experience of a service, and it came down and keeps coming down to communication, perceptions, understandings, and actually it is so simple but yet so complex. I think we can all learn from it, both personally and professionally. You up for that?
No, definitely. I mean, for me, I feel that that's one of the core things about the Dorset Innovation Hub is actually we're not following a direction of travel that we, you know, as the core team or as the program team decide on and move forward with. And certainly for me, when we do the education programs, I see that because actually what we gain from people just even in the first hour is what are you working on? How are you, you know, how can we use this education to support people? And I think that and contextualize the if we can contextualize the teaching that we're doing to include different people's examples that they bring along in the day, people take a lot more from that experience than they will for us just, you know, talking about something which is very difficult for them to apply to their own role or their, you know, or their own workplace. So yeah, no, definitely.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Thank you, Claire. And yeah, let's take that forward. We can catch up with that soon. Thinking about then, just thinking about your role, can you your role thinking about the Centre for Workforce and Systems Innovation, can you just briefly outline what the ambitions are for this Centre for Workforce and Systems Innovation?
Yeah, so the whole creation was the centre is when you sit in a university, it's such a big place and there's a lot of students and there's sort of like the core functions of a university. And sometimes the things that are really important can get a little bit lost in the day-to-day work. So the idea of the centre was really to look at how can we work with internal and external partners to drive forward. So innovation in multiple contexts, but really driven by sort of improvement. But also, how do we work with our external partners to understand their needs? And that's something that universities aren't really that good at. We perceive ourselves to be the experts in particular areas, and we drive things forward based on our expertise, but we don't include the the people at the end of what we're delivering. So who are those people? So they are, you know, for example, for me, my NHS colleagues, how do I help them with their workforce issues? How do I help them fill the gaps, give them workforce solutions that we can do from education? The service user, we've got to never, and it's really interesting that you just mentioned that. At the end of what we produce as a university is the service user, so the patient, the client, however you refer to them, depending on where you work. If we can't do what's right for them, we're failing at the first hurdle, aren't we? And then, of
Absolutely.
course, the people that are in the NHS workforce, how do we involve them in our decision making? So the centre is really trying to drive forward that piece around working collaboratively, co-producing education for the future, bearing in mind, you know, who does it impact on at the end of the day? And that's the one thing
Yeah.
that sometimes we don't really think about enough. So yeah.
And
And
I
the
think
other,
that,
yeah, sorry.
no, that's okay, you go.
The other thing that I really wanted the centre to do was try to celebrate and recognise achievements. And I think, you know, sometimes achievements get lost. They might be small achievements, but actually I want people to understand what massive steps that education is taking to try and drive forward innovation in the sector. So there is something around how do we recognise that?
Absolutely. And if I may be so bold, I think that's one of the absolute natural and beautiful evolving points with the Dorset Innovation Hub. The AECC is a very, very strong advocate of working system approaches. And as you say, it's about how do we look at the end user? How do we look at the need? And what you have done, you and the team have done from the AECC, is work really proactively with the Dorset Innovation Hub to look at those needs, and that in itself then translates back into your academic institution. But it's also helped by that education programme. It's helped by spreading that universal language, that understanding. So I just think that that can go from strength to strength. Noting your involvement in our priority project, Nutrition in Aging People project, which is fantastic, and actually looking at the need, looking at the service user. So huge thanks for your participation in that. I'm just going to pull us back. We are focusing on the Centre for Workforce and Systems Innovation, but it's a reminder that today we're thinking about International Women's Day, thinking about that theme of inspiring inclusion. How do you, as part of the centre, encourage and inspire students and staff from that perspective? And I suppose thinking about women, but it would be nice to do a note for everyone.
Yeah. So I guess one of the ways is listening. I had we did a reverse mentoring project here at AECC, which actually was probably I've learned so much from, and I really never sort of perceived that. It was a bit of a struggle to flip, well, not the power balance because I don't work like that, but just to flip the agenda a little bit. And it made me realize that actually we make assumptions all the time around students. And this particular one was an international student. And we made assumptions around what international students want. And
Okay.
actually that they want to be surrounded by other international students, or that women want to be surrounded by, I don't know, we make a lot of assumptions in life, and we don't actually go back and say, was that actually what you wanted? Um,
Mm,
and this whole conversation really made me understand that actually we need to try and wipe out those assumptions a little bit. We need to be able to understand where our students' needs are, and we focus on things that actually aren't important. And there's a little
okay.
bit of something there, Sarah, isn't there, about age and actually generations, and how generations are evolving and how their needs are very different than the last
Mm,
generation. So if you really want to be inclusive, that starts with a conversation and ruling out your current assumptions and being very open and
mm.
transparent to actually what are people's needs and what do they want to get from their experiences.
That's
So
that's
yes,
really powerful, isn't it? Because actually these huge presumptions, we are almost pushing an agenda that is our own. And if we're again turning it on its head, turning it to that student, that will make a more empowering, inclusive experience. Are you able to explore a little bit about some of the presumptions, obviously recognizing it will be, a confidential discussion that you have with this person?
yeah, well, I think there's something around grouping people together because we think that they sit in a natural group, but actually that doesn't fit everyone, does it? It was really
Yeah.
interesting. I was at an event yesterday, and it was a health event yesterday. Um, and it was actually an event for employers and educators. And the actual thing about seeing students there, someone had brought some of their students along, and I don't know if it was prearranged or anything, but the impact of actually having and including students in an
Mm.
event like that, which was, you know, fairly high level event, was just, oh yeah, I'd never have thought about that. And I've been at other things where we've said, okay, well, we're talking about education and how we're changing education for the future, and but we don't have any students sitting here talking to us about
Mm.
what they want. So it goes back to, you know, that particular international student saying, you know, on day one, it actually wasn't at our university, but on day one, I was scheduled an hour with all the other international students that had come on that day. And she said, because someone assumed that I'd like to be with people, or international people. She said, but we're from all over the world. We've got completely different backgrounds. We're on different
Yeah.
courses, even. Um, but someone had just assumed that we just make our own network, and said it was one of the most uncomfortable things that I ever did, to be put in a room where it was in my timetable. So I was almost, you know, you had to do it.
Yeah.
Um, but actually, that wasn't where I wanted to be. I wanted to be with the people that I was going to spend the next 3 years of my course with, because
Mm.
actually, if I remove myself from them on the early days,
Mm.
then, you know, in essence, I would struggle to build my relationships with them, which was where my priority lied.
Yeah, yeah, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. I'm sensing that students will be forming a part of your groups, like we have patient and public representatives
Yeah.
in health and care. I'm sensing that's going to be a new approach, or a revised approach. I think that's a really, really powerful story, and thank you. Are there any other points you want to raise, Claire? If not, I think we'll naturally just conclude our conversation.
No, I'll probably just really one thing, and one thing, and this is about women, is about making sure that we celebrate the achievements, but also that other people don't celebrate them for us. So I really, every day of my
Okay.
life is underpinned by not being selfish. If someone in my team has done something that's really brilliant that we need to celebrate, I never did that. That person did it. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes as women, we sit back and we allow other people to take forward our really hard work and determination behind a project. We have to make sure that women don't struggle to be recognized in the workplace for the value that we give. So yeah, I'll be constantly fighting for that as
You
a
are
non-feminist.
as a non-feminist, you are an absolute champion, and huge thank yous for agreeing to be interviewed, to have a discussion with me today for International Women's Day 2024, the theme of Inspire Inclusion. Claire, thank you so much. Really appreciate chatting to you today.
Thank you for
Cheers.
asking me.
You're welcome. You're welcome.